Something to say? Let's hear from Don now.
Welcome back here to Whittier Field. It's 17-7 in favor of Amherst at the half as Amherst getting a touchdown late in the first quarter on a 22-yard Hickey run, and then a field goal from Ferrero and a completion from Ebert to Berry. That was in between a Bo Millett 5-yard reception from McCrum. Bowdoin early in the game had an opportunity. They were first and goal at the 1, but on the fourth down play, they fumbled the ball. Amherst recovered it at the 21-yard line, and that really is one of the big plays in this first half.
This is the 127th season, which is incredible, the 96th Amherst-Bowdoin rivalry. What is it about New England football, and especially this conference, that sparks the passion?
Well, one thing about this conference, I think that this conference really has great talent in all the sports because of the NESCAC being such a high academic quality conference. It's kind of the I don't know if we want to say the smaller version of the Ivies, but in the Northeast, I mean, you've got that type of reputation for all these schools. And so I think a lot of times kids who will come to these schools want that great great academic challenge and still want to play sports, but maybe don't want to do it at the D1 or D2 level. So they look at an NESCAC school and say, this is a great place for me to go play, and it really works well for them, knowing that there's such a small percentage of players who are going to go on professionally anyway, even at the D1 level.
Well, you understate it. And, the one thing that my listeners ought to focus on is that the conference was formed in 71, clearly, but you've got 27 conference championships. You've got 13 for men, 14 for women. You got 7,500 opportunities for involvement. You had 72 teams in NCAA team championships. So this is not just a football conference with some schools that, by the way, have some great nicknames. So I'm going to find the concession stand and get the Colby Mules, the Bates Bobcats, the Tufts Jumbos. By the way, the Amherst Mammoths today are playing the Bowdoin Polar Bears, in case anybody wants to know. So there is a merchandising and revenue goldmine here.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, there's always a need for those T-shirts and hats. And when you talk about these two schools, it may not be the football field, but last year in the national championship in Division III women's college basketball, these were the two schools that played each other, and by far they were the cream of the crop in Division III women's college basketball.
And let's remember this as well, and you said it, and I would emphasize it for folks that maybe don't know this conference, is that Williams and Amherst and Bowdoin and Bates and Colby, Wesleyan, you don't just get Tufts. You don't just get in by snapping your fingers. These are exciting academic schools, and you're absolutely right. Division I, Ivy League doesn't have scholarships, nor do you. But if you want this kind of education and high energy athletics, there's nothing better than here and then today. And by the way, you guys are great because Whittier Field was built in 1904. That was just kind of about where football started. You spent $4.5 million on this first phase of renovation. You name everything. You're your first school that I've seen where you actually name a grandstand. Who is Hubbard?
You're going to have to someone who's been here longer than I have been.
There's the Whittier Field. Everybody knows Whittier, but Hubbard Grandstand, the field's going to be named. Everything's going to be named. Well, you guys are cool.
But that really, that's the way of the time. I mean, we used the ballparks were named or arenas were named after wherever their location was, and now it's banks and insurance companies and tech companies are all looking for that sponsorship because they know that broadcasters are going to say that location several times, and the same thing for the writers and things like that.
And here's one for you. So obviously, I was kind of kidding. I was told earlier that if you don't know who Hubbard is, you better not come in the press box because he's apparently a big deal here, or Whittier, and both of them are really important. So all of the schools at all levels want to maximize dollars. Alaska Air just did a $41 million naming deal at Husky Stadium. Washington, University of Kentucky did. United Airlines at Southern Cal. And everybody's saying, you shouldn't be doing that. Gambling, we're going to have a lot of that discussion. Alcohol, a lot of that. Division I needs dollars. Division II, Division III needs dollars as well. What's the next big breakthrough thing here? Do we continue to donations? Do we sell the names of fields? What do you see in your world?
Well, because I'm not here day in, day out. Yeah. I'm more of a freelancer for Bowdoin. But, one of the things about the NESCAC schools as a whole, they have a really great base of people who are part of the alumni who donate back to the school. So I think they take advantage of that. But you're watching the smaller, the non-NESCAC D1s in the state trying to tap in, and look, they do tap into the money. Colby has a great association with the Alfond Fund, and Alfond is very famous in the state of Maine. Matter of fact, University of Maine has an Alfond Stadium or an Alfond Arena. Colby does. I believe the University of New England has Alfond. So there, a lot of the schools in Maine have taken Alfond
Well, and
money.
just to add, so Wesleyan, you guys play Wesleyan at Andrews Field. You guys play Hamilton at Steubenfield. You guys played Middlebury at Youngman Field. I'll make you a bet that those guys wrote some checks.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. Right. I mean, your name's not on a field if you didn't do something. I mean, let's be honest about it. In Major League Baseball, Wrigley Field is because Wrigley had a lot of chewing gum and he had some money to spend.
And some money too. Chewing gum and some money. That's the way it started. Let me ask you one quick thing, because I know you got to get a rest before the half starts. Television. So the way you do your deal, it's the New England Sports Network. Tell my listeners and viewers about who they are and what they do.
Well, it's a company that's based out of Vermont, and it actually started doing Vermont-based high school and colleges in that area, and then it's kind of spread over the past several years. Eric Berry is one of the guys that helped lead that up in Vermont, and I think it's year 6 where they started reaching out to the NESCACs. Bowdoin has been along for the last 6 years. That's where I came in on this. Colby is a part of the NESCAC, and now as far as NSN stations are concerned, or schools are concerned, all but Tufts are part of that. Tufts is the only one that does not have an agreement. And of course, they're in Boston, and I think there's all types of things that when you have a bigger market like that plays into it. So they have found a niche, and it's really not a commercial-driven thing. It's more of an alumni-driven thing where the broadcasts are paid for by the school. That's why there's so very few commercials. There's I think we ran a 60-second commercial that promoted Bowdoin. Right. So there's not the traditional. I mean, I work in my real life for a local radio station who does high school sports, and we're looking for those local sponsors who want to promote their business in those broadcasts, and we don't do that here.
Your pipes working at a local radio station, that's a shocker. That's great. But on the television side, it is interesting because even at the different levels, the NBC podcast we do, and then at the NFL, everybody's now dumping on the fact that the television ratings are down and that football is therefore in trouble. Well, it's not the television ratings, it's what people are watching or what people are listening to. And you have the same number of eyeballs, they're just watching devices. They're listening to devices. I guess from your perspective, you see that too, don't you?
Right. And there's so many more options available for them. That's why radio stations are streaming broadcast and TV. I mean, this really, yes, it's TV, but it's not TV. It was started out as a webcast on a computer, and now through Roku, you've got an app there, and you can punch it up, and you can watch it on your. You can watch this broadcast on your big screen TV in the luxury of your living room or the game room or whatever it is, and really what the whole NSN idea is, it's not really for the local viewers. If you live in the Brunswick, Maine area, you're at this game, you're here. It's for those members from the families who can't get here, alumni who want to keep in touch with Bowdoin Polar Bear football, and they're able to do that by watching this NSN broadcast.
And another thing that I noticed is that you all, and the conference does, but you especially recruit nationally. I noticed a lot of the kids, some obviously the New England area, a lot of others will come because they like the academics and they'll travel and they'll do this here. And I guess the webcam and the broadcast is just another way to get this out nationally to people.
That's an advertising tool, whether anyone believes it or not. That if you can say, hey, all your games are going to be seen. And I know I drop down and do soccer and volleyball, and it always I have probably more interaction with parents in those games than I do this football because of just where we sit for football. But in soccer and volleyball, when I do those games, I always have a parent or two who come up to me and say, hey, I'm from such and such, British Columbia. A few weeks ago at a soccer game, hey, I'm from British Columbia, and I love watching the games online. So
I guess from my perspective, and then we'll let you get a little bit of rest. Don't hold a bake sale for this conference, and don't hold a bake sale for Bowdoin Athletics. They've done tremendously over the last few years in ice hockey and volleyball and men's tennis. everywhere, basketball as well. And one of the beauties of what you do is you are able to get an inspired alumni network all across this conference to generate some support and economics. And this network is really important. It's not going away, and it's very stable.
Yeah, and the other thing we have to remember, and it's been told to us, remember that every school, with the exception of Tufts, is part of NSN. So yes, I am here at Bowdoin doing the Bowdoin broadcast, but I also know there are Amherst fans watching. I just happen to have more expertise on Bowdoin than I do Amherst, but I have to kind of keep reminding myself throughout the broadcast that it's you got to be more neutral than you are. It's hard for me because I've always been a homer broadcaster. So.
You sound like a homer broadcaster, and you should be a homer broadcaster. Don Shields, I really appreciate you giving me the time to talk to you. Learned so much about this conference and really having fun here.
Well, this is a great place to come. It's nice to meet you, Rick, and it's a great place to come and watch a ball game. And the thing I wish I had known, the beauty of coming to this football thing when my kids were small, to bring them, because that's the other thing. These games are free.
Yeah, well,
so
I noticed that.
Nobody's taking tickets when they come in. I think the only ticket they take in regular season is the Colby Bowdoin men's hockey game. I think you need a ticket for that one. I don't think they charge you for it, but you need a ticket to get into that one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, anybody that wants to hear this, Reuters International, NBC, anywhere, you ought to think about going to Bowdoin. And if you don't want to go to Bowdoin, go to Trinity, Wesleyan, Bates, Colby, Williams, Middlebury, Amherst, Tufts, or Hamilton. How's that?
There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
We enjoy it. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
There is some perspective.